Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 3rd edition of CAFP Community Conversations. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday evening with us. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about wellness, resiliency, joy, and gratitude. I think this is a nice follow-up for those of you who were on last week's call where Adia Scruggs and Brent Sugimoto talked about Adia's work in ACEs and her quest to bring wellness scoring and resiliency scoring into the world of ACEs. A couple of housekeeping measures for tonight before we get started. We are live streaming onto the Facebook page, so please remember others will see your comments, but we do want you to comment. We would love for you to type in your questions or comments into the Facebook chat. We'll be triaging those comments and getting them to our panelist and moderator this evening. We'll do our very best to answer as many questions as possible, and if we can't get to yours, we apologize. But we do keep the chat, and we'll respond during the week if you have questions we can help with. We are pleased to offer one AFP prescribed credit for this activity. We have a link that you can use to go to claim your credit and do a very short survey for us. This package is being recorded, and you'll be able to find it on the CAFP's COVID-19 website page. Quick disclosure, CME, we're very interested in making sure that we have independent, balanced, and objective content, and none of our individuals this evening have any relevant financial disclosure to make. Tonight's panelist, and this is kind of an all-star cast, and I'm very excited to welcome them. Your CAFP President, Walt Mills, who's kind of in a countdown mode. He's about 2 weeks before he hands over his presidency slot to David Bazo. CAFP past president and soon to be sworn in as an AFP alternate delegate, Michelle Kyogi, over in Bakersfield. CAFP past president and the chair of FP PAC, Carla Kakutani from Winters, so Northern California represented. And then CAFP's own manager of operations and governance, Morgan Cleveland's going to join us tonight to talk a little bit about how her spin on this looks, working with the CAFP staff who have been working from home now for 7 weeks and trying to balance the work for the Academy and the work for our families and the work for all of you as well. Our objective for this evening is pretty simple. We really do want to have an interactive conversation about wellness and resilience. We want you to be able to identify some tools to support individual wellness, kind of think back about what brings you joy in practice, reflect on gratitude, and make one action plan. And we're hoping that you downloaded the worksheet that we sent along with the email that went out both Thursday night and today. That's not a homework assignment that has to be turned in, but we thought it might be a fun activity for you as you thought about wellness and you thought about gratitude and you thought about joy. Ground rules for tonight, going to be a supportive environment, sharing struggles and challenges. That was really the whole starting point for the community conversations, was an opportunity in a safe place for family docs to have to come together and chat about what they're seeing and what they're feeling and how they're working through these. We hope to celebrate a few victories and learn from each other's victories. And we really do want to stay engaged and use this kind of productivity, not just through our sheltering in place, but when we start launching our slow move toward open practices and open communities again, and have this reflection time to celebrate with each other. Walt, I'm going to give it to you, and all you have to do is say next slide, and I'm going to be your control gal. Thank you again, and we look forward to chatting with you in the chat box at the end of the activity.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Shelley, and thank you to all those who've been able to join us today, and for those of you who eventually listen to this recording. So as Shelley mentioned, I'm getting towards the end of this year as being president of the CFP, and well-being has really been one of the themes running throughout it, but never guessing on my own part, nor on the Academy's part, or I'm sure on your parts, that we would be in the middle of this unprecedented experience that the entire globe is going through in a way that really makes well-being, resiliency, and some of the practices we'll get a chance to think about and share and learn about tonight. What I've got up in front of you is a couple of numbers that probably don't mean a whole lot to the audience. But that's okay, because the intent here is to get a little bit of a question about why, before we really get into the how and the what. So first, why? Well, a few years ago, the American Academy of Family Physicians and CFP and others, came up with the appropriate strategy that by 2030, we need a lot more family doctors if we're actually going to have a healthcare system that works for our patients and for ourselves. Hence, the Academy came up with a goal that by 2030, 25% of all medical students in the United States would go into family medicine. To give you an idea of where we are now, it's about half that, about 12% of domestically trained medical students this past year went into family medicine. So we have a ways to go. We have a decade to get there, but it's a stretch. Very closely related has been the ongoing appreciation that joy in work, that well-being, that having a sense of excitement about being a family physician is really crucial to our workforce development. I mean, who would sign up to be a family physician if indeed people aren't happy doing it? So our goal is by 2030 to have 75% of all family physicians report that they're happy at work, that they have joy at work. To give you an idea of our baseline, last year, 30% of family physicians who were asked, are you happy in your work, reported that they were happy or very happy. Many were neutral and some were not very happy. We go on to the next slide. So last year at my acceptance speech, I mentioned this. I also called out the fact that a good portion of the dilemma we're seeing with burnout has to do with system issues. We are resilient practically by definition to make it through training and actually to practice as family physicians. This came out as a landmark article, and I recommend that you find it, use it for yourself in whatever small practice, large practice role you may play, because it's the first landmark consensus study to actually take on the science of professional well-being and really work to mitigate burnout. The other piece of this is that they're calling for something that should be as dramatic as what we witnessed 20 years ago. You might recall, some on this particular meeting will probably recall, others hopefully have read about it and know about it, that the report came out To Err Is Human, which said that more than 100,000 patients in US hospitals were dying from preventable deaths. It was a real wake-up call for us as a healthcare system. Today, somewhere between 100 to 200,000 patients are not dying because of dramatic system changes. We call it a culture of safety. What we're aiming for here is to develop a culture of well-being where it's safe for clinicians in our healthcare delivery system. Let's keep going. So until a few decades ago, there wasn't a lot written about this. We are still early on in terms of understanding actually the science, the research, et cetera. Last week, in a very excellent presentation on ACEs and patient resiliency, the presenters said, the resilience literature is not that robust. We're still kind of feeling our way through this. There is some solid things about what drives burnout. And I just want to call that out in terms of the context of the environment we're in now. When we feel lack of control, when we have conflict with values, think of the pharmacy company that won't approve the medication your patient needs. When there's insufficient reward. Across the country right now, 10 to 30% of physicians are being furloughed or having reductions in their pay. We're not so bad yet in California because we haven't really seen the peak or the real stress that the COVID experience is portending to come. People are being threatened in terms of their actual financial solvency in some of their practices. So that's a really important thing. Work overload, that whole work-life balance that we struggle for. The sense of fairness. And the sixth one may be one of the more important ones, community. That's why CFP, we've decided to call these community conversations, because one piece of us courting and supporting our well-being and avoiding burnout all the time, but especially now, is to be together as a community. Next slide. So we want to call out the fact we're not just here to avoid burnout. We're here to really move up the entire wellness paradigm to a place where we feel energized and are thriving. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm really looking forward to our panelists teaching me a little bit more about that. Let's go to the next slide. All right, I have this and one more slide in this part of the presentation. What we wanted to do is just give a sense of our current environment. This is a health footprint of the pandemic. It's one way of thinking about our current situation. We're very engaged in that first wave to the left, the immediate mortality and morbidity of COVID-19. There's this second wave of things that we're anticipating will happen because a person was unable to get timely care for an unrelated COVID event because we're so distracted and resources are allocated towards COVID. The third wave speaks for itself. We'll see how that does in terms of where are we at with chronic care that's been delayed, et cetera. But what we're really concerned about for tonight is to just recognize that there is considerable psychic trauma currently going on and expected to go on for our patients, certainly, but also for us. You know, where are we going to be in terms of that economic injury I talked about and burnout? So what we're really engaged in tonight is something where we can build for resiliency in order to mitigate what we certainly know we're going to be in. So now let's talk about what brings us joy. So I'd like to ask the panelists to think about that a little bit.
Well, did we lose you?
I think so. Let's see what we can do here.
I'll just slide in here until you can get back up with us. Probably talk a little bit tonight about not only what brings you joy at home, but what brings you joy at work and how you balance these two. What are your goals for improving your wellness? And do you have plans that you can help others improve their wellness for your patients, for your staff, for your families? And how are you helping with them through their goals? We're going to talk a little bit about 3 things that you're grateful for in the past 24 hours. This is where you can kind of put that little thinking cap on. And what in the last 24 hours has made you really grateful and has brought you joy? And then we want a little bit of sharing. We want you to share with us what is happening and how you are managing through all of the craziness that we're living with. With this in mind, we'd like our panelists to answer a couple questions for us. So we're going to start out with an introduction, who you are. I mean, I gave you a very quick little introduction. Kind of your practice or your position or, you know, what your kind of day life is like. What are you doing personally for wellness, for yourself? And what are you doing for your patients, your staff, or your family, or all of the above? And if we can get each of the 3 of you to talk about that, then we're going to come back and answer these bottom 3 questions with what you're finding that's working and what surprised you about this jump into our crazy world and kind of what tips do you have to share. So I'm going to start with Michelle Kyogi. Who are you? What's your kind of practice? What are you doing for wellness for yourself and your patients and your family?
So I am here in Bakersfield, California with the Southern California Permanente Medical Group of Kern County. And I'm a frontline, full-time family medicine doctor in Bakersfield. And since the pandemic started, we've really revolutionized our practice. I've gone from Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 job to a now 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts with 2 days of telephone appointments, completely 12 hours of telephone appointments, and 1 day of face-to-face appointments at our urgent care. And I think there's a few points of resilience that I wanted to touch on. First is that boundaries, and second is the connection with colleagues, and the third is finding joy in all of this change. So for boundaries, I've always been the kind of person who never brought work home. So I never had a laptop from work. I never had remote access token. I always used to just leave when today's work was done, knowing that, whatever messages I were to initiate, there'd be no one on the other end to catch it until 8 o'clock the next day. So I might as well just go home and send the message tomorrow. So this has been very challenging to work from home for me. In fact, because I didn't have a work laptop, I was in the first few weeks still going to the office to do telephone visits because I just didn't have a way to work from home. So some things we had to do was to order me a laptop. We had to boost up our internet speed so that I could do visits from home. And then once that got all the hardware stuff was in place, I started doing work from home. And, what I found is me being home but not available has its own set of challenges. It's a promise of, oh, I get to see the family more, but really it's more of a ambivalent experience for everybody else, because I'm actually still on work time and I only have breaks when the work allows me to have breaks. So it's something we're trying to be flexible on. And, when I do have a break, I actually leave my work area, which is my bedroom, and I say, I'm home. And then when I'm done, I say, bye, everyone, I'm going to work, just to keep sort of that pretend boundary between work and home that no longer really exists. We only had one episode where my daughter, who's Emmy, 11 years old, snuck in during work hours. She was here quiet, just sitting next to me, listening to two appointments. And, she can't hear the patients because I was, on a headset. And then when I finally finished the appointments, we left the room and I said, so how come you're here? And she said, I told Daddy I was going to go do something. He doesn't know I'm in here. So that was, it was fun, but I was torn into making sure she didn't feel unwanted. Like I had this weird conflict that I didn't want to push her away because I know she wants to be with me, but it wasn't very professional to allow her to stay there the whole time. So that was a whole other surprising conflict I did not anticipate. And then the second point is colleagues. So our medical group is physician owned, and we have become much more connected than ever before in terms of changing workflows and staying connected on chats and really influencing the way that our day goes in terms of the schedule and mitigating exposure. It's been really actually a way to fight burnout. Walt had put those six bullet points. I feel like since the pandemic, we have, as a medical group, much more control of our workday and much more community connection to other partners in our group, and much more say when it comes to the day-to-day work. And we've noticed rapid change, and I feel like we're much more engaged than we were before, and the work is more rewarding than it was before. So that has been a surprise as well. And then the joy, I posted a picture on Facebook of me in my new workstation. I felt like a DJ, because nowadays DJs wear the headphones and they have their MacBook. And I was like, oh, look, I look like a DJ and my MacBook and my headphones. So, just funny things. At work, I wear scrubs, so I dress up for work at home, since I can't wear regular clothes outside anymore. So just different things like that. And then if I have a break, I, hang out with the family. Our break room now is way cooler than the break room at work. I got lots more scrumptious things to eat.
Great.
Strangers
Thanks,
wearing
Michelle.
masks. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
super.
fun.
Carla, what are you guys up to?
All right. So hello, Carla Kakatani from Winters, California. I am working still in my office because my patient population, probably like at least 50% of them just cannot get the hang of telemedicine at all. So we kind of have a very hybrid day that's part people in real life and part telemedicine. And I'm working with my partner. And we're trying to stay out of each other's way because we have a super tiny office. And we're actually, this next week's going to be pretty interesting because we're going to, kind of be reopening to pretty much everything, and how we get, people in and out of this tiny office and not, create any risk for them or for us, and everything is going to be, it's going to be interesting. So, so I had a couple of ideas to talk about tonight. One of them was that at the beginning of all this, there was a lot of fatigue that I was very surprised about, because on the paper, my amount of work that I was doing is like half, at least. And yet I'd come home and I was just like, I'm just so tired. And I realized that what it is it's like we're all used to making constant decisions, but this was a kind of a new layer of decisions with not enough information to help us, make decisions. Should I see this person? Shouldn't I see this person? What should I tell them about their risk? People are anxious, and then also taking on, our patients' anxieties, our staff's anxieties, and then of course anxieties of our family, and kind of being the person that everybody looks to deal with that. So that was hard at the beginning. And then I think we kind of got into a bit of a groove, and now I think our anxieties are gonna, or at least mine, are gonna kind of increase again as we kind of move into this new phase of everything. But I know Michelle will understand this. Michelle and I are both cancer survivors. And I think that's given me, anyway, a very interesting perspective on all of this. Because when you have cancer, you learn very quickly about life with uncertainty. And I feel like our folks, our patients, our colleagues, people that have not experienced that are kind of getting a very fast, tutorial about what that's like. And for me, quarantine feels kind of like chemo, except that you don't hurt. And you can taste your food, and you can taste your coffee, and you can taste your wine, and it's all, in that sense, it's really great. So, and then probably one of the biggest jobs I've had at home anyway is to kind of be the quarantine helper for my daughter, who's a high school senior. who has some anxiety to begin with, and you know, it's been a challenge, but we're kind of supporting each other and trying to help each other, you know, get through all of this. The other point I kind of wanted to make while I had the microphone is, and this ties into what I talked to her about and what I talked to patients about, and what I learned as when I was a patient, is that you have to practice self-compassion, especially in times of real dramatic change and trauma. And I think as physicians, we're really poor at that. You know, that there's so many times when we, you know, kind of want to judge ourselves and say to ourselves, am I doing this right? Am I being a patient right? In my case, when I was sick, or in this case, you know, am I doing quarantine right? Am I doing enough projects? Am I doing, you know, all the right stuff? Am I doing the, you know, if I'm doing things right at the office? You know, and there are no rules because nobody's ever been through this before. And I'd like to encourage everybody to not judge themselves and how they've reacted to this, that if you feel kind of a bit out of control, or you feel like everybody's doing it right and you're doing it wrong, well, that's, you know, really not the way to think of it, you know. And the other point that I learned over time is it's quite fine to have both gratitude on one hand and big angry feelings on the other. And I think a lot of people want to look at gratitude as kind of a, you're only grateful and you're not allowed to feel anything else. And that is just totally not true. And that's okay to kind of be feeling mixed like that, and then it's okay to express it too.
Thanks. Morgan, we're going to switch gears a little bit from three of you, and Walt, I'm going to get to you right after Morgan, from three of you who are seeing patients and balancing that care piece, to Morgan, who's not seeing patients, but is balancing a whole different care piece.
Thanks, Shelley. And it's so amazing to listen to each of you. I'm just learning so much hearing you speak. So I'm the CAFP Operations and Governance Manager, and usually spend a lot of my time working with members, and particularly with our chapters and chapter leaders in the office. And it's true, I'm not on the front lines or even close to the front lines right now, and I so have so much gratitude for those of you that are. I am, like the other CAFP staff, sequestered at my home. And we go in about once every week or 10 days, you know, for processing checks and a few basic things that we have to do. But otherwise, we are all working very separate from each other physically. But Lisa's had a great practice of daily Zoom check-ins, and now we're doing it about 3 times a week, but just making sure that we are grounded and doing what we can to kind of continue to build that team, and not just check in about, you know, what we're doing, how we're doing, but also just kind of see each other's faces and know that that's important. So when I thought about, when I first encountered this, I think I used that sort of the example of putting on your own oxygen mask before you take care of other people. As a parent, I've got 2 college-age kids home now also. And so used to that. I think one of the first things that I felt was really important and quickly got on was taking an inventory of the things that I know that bring me joy and promote my well-being, and building a structure really intentionally, a daily structure that made sure to include those. And it started with all the fundamental things that I know you as my doctors would tell me, which is to try to my best ability to protect my sleep, to think about good nutrition. And in nutrition, I think about not just food and feeding my family, of course, but turning off the news. I found that the kind of mental malnutrition that was happening to me from listening to the news, I had to titrate that. And then and movement and getting out in nature and connecting to family and friends. And so I just sort of built those as the building blocks for myself. But everyone has different things that bring them joy. And I think that that's really important, to be in tune with what helps you feel your best, and and to incorporate even 5 minutes of that into your day. The next thing was then, like I said, thinking about my family and how to help my family with this. And I think something, Carla, that you said really strikes home for me. I mean, I've got 2 college-age kids who are home, and my youngest went off to college this year. She's certainly having the first taste of freedom and independence, was not excited to come back home and have to, be here with me looking over her shoulder and telling her how it went, whatever, how she should do things. So I think that the thing that really practicing patience with each other and forgiveness and being willing to let a lot go and to just kind of try and try again. One of the best things one of my children, when they were in kindergarten, their kindergarten teacher said to me was that the best gift you give to your children, and this probably could go to anyone, isn't being perfect, it's your striving. And so the gift that we give in striving, showing up, and showing them is far, far better than being a perfect parent or a perfect anything. And then the last thing, and this gets to what Shelley was talking about, is that, I really, after I grounded myself, I got to the point where, I could remember that one of the most powerful tools at my disposal really is my ability to see other people and to do everything that I could to buoy them. And I really feel like we have taken that up as a staff, that we know we're not on the front lines, but what can we do to buoy each other and those that are? And there's like amazing power in doing that. And so Shelley started this, I think she got us started with an Excel spreadsheet, and we started writing thank you cards and sending out personal thank you cards to people just to say, we love you and thanks so much for what you're doing. And Josh had designed these t-shirts, which we had planned on giving to all of our chapter officers during the all-member advocacy meeting. And so Josh and I came in one day, and on opposite rooms, opposite sides of the office, we started mailing out the t-shirts to our chapter officers and writing personal cards to each of them saying, thanks for being out there, being a hero. We designed, of course, this community conversations place for people to connect. And really, all of the staff have been on the front lines of, advocacy and looking at, of course, payment around the telemedicine, and trying to get out there and get PPE with Conrad's PPE project. And, I think we're really just very grounded in what is it and how can we be of service. So I think that's what I'd say for starters.
Great, thanks. Walt, I know that you started all this, but you didn't really get a chance to talk about yourself and your practice. And you have a little different role because you have all of these wonderful residents under your wing, and they've had a huge change in their lives as well. What's going on at Natividad? Where are you finding, your own stride for wellness and helping others with their wellness? You're on mute. Let me unmute you. Okay.
I saw a comment from Doug, and I know there's other faculty and residents and medical students, perhaps even on this call. And yes, so in the world of academics, it is complicated. There is the very similar issues related to how do we care for patients and for ourselves and our staff in this new time. But I'll give you the story at Natividad. On March 13th, we sent all our medical students and our PA students home. They all are sheltering in place. So medical students across the country are actually with their moms and dads and brothers and sisters or their spouse or wherever. And I get on Zoom with them several times a week, and they are doing all virtual classrooms right now. They have not seen any patients directly we're heading into 2 months. And most of us think this is going to gradually improve, but we're being thoughtful about some hybrid piece of things. And as it was alluded to by Sorry, I'm actually on call and someone else supposed to be covering. So I'm in the front lines here. So that's what keeps happening here.
Well, go ahead and take the
We
call. Patients come first.
are family doctors. But I think the overarching thing is it's a virtual reality for everybody. It's a very different reality. So medical students are worried, who are going to their 4th year, are they going to be able to do sub-Is? Are they going to be able to go to actually do interviews come fall? Most program directors are thinking a lot of that's going to be virtual. We'll be interviewing people on Zoom and not even meeting them, and then they will eventually show up in the residency. So that's a real different thing. We have graduate residents, none here, and I haven't heard about it in California, but across the country, there are residents who are graduating who have jobs and contracts who are being told they aren't needed right now. All the board exams have all been delayed. So there's just a number of things that are all very interdependent that you really wouldn't think about unless you were in academics. On the other side, think of being a clinician and wanting to teach. You're not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. Carla said she's not sure how she's going to manage her office with her partner and her patients. What if you had a medical student who was really wanting to be with you, which I'm sure many would love to be with you, Michelle. We are working in our own office now. We're doing 100% telehealth in our FQHC. We have a small office nearby where our direct patient care, analogous to Michelle doing urgent care face-to-face. What we're working on is I need 4 Zooms in essence. We're using a new software program so that the patient and the clinician, whether it's a resident or a faculty person or a medical student, a preceptor needs to be able to be there virtually, and a student. So very interesting to think about all that. What's going to come out is just like in our clinical medicine, there are going to be some things that we never want to give up. There's going to be some good things in all of this. And that's a piece of really what we're trying to do is be as well and resilient and engaged and really be watchful for these opportunities. You know, telehealth has moved forward to a space that it wouldn't have been for 5 or 10 years. So, you know, as family doctors, we have an opportunity, if we can manage the change, which requires resilience, to take to a degree, you know, every crisis has some opportunity in it. So that's really important. I just wanted to say 1 or 2 things, Shelley, about what I just heard and that relates to part of my story is being a student of this topic for a while and humbly not very good at it, and looking forward to learning a few more things in our remaining minutes. But what I heard from Carla was being a cancer survivor, the ability to cognitively reframe, the ability to take a reality and reframe it because of past experience. That is a really crucial skill for all of us to have. And then I heard a lot about gratitude, which I'm looking forward to us getting to.
Great, thanks, Walt. 1 question for the panelists as we're going to move into gratitude in 1 minute, but just one thing I wanted to hear from you. What surprised you about the last 7 weeks? What has really been a surprise for you? I mean, you know the patients will have anxiety, you know that you will have, you know, transition planning. And what's one thing that surprised you about the last 7-8 weeks as we've gone undercover, so to speak? Michelle?
I'm surprised how many visits, complaints can actually be done over the phone. So I remember, you know, going and starting telephone visits maybe 3-5 years ago and being hesitant to give up the physical exam, to give up the whole, you know, choreography of a visit. And now here I am doing 90% telephone, and to really kind of come to terms with what really was the value of a face-to-face visit. And as we triage people coming into urgent care, we are very cognizant to only allow those visits that must be face-to-face. if it at all can be done over the phone, we try to mitigate that exposure to the entire staff. And so to reframe, you know, that whole office visit into, and to evolve what medicine will be going forward, I think has really surprised me, because in all of medical school, it had always been about the touch and the relationship and the, you know, the 4 habits for us was, you know, making in and out of the room was really structured of how you communicate with a patient. And to now change that choreography to be over the phone and still be able to provide care has been really, I've been doing new patient established visits. I've been doing, you know, all of these things that I never thought I could do over the phone, and it's working out fine.
Great, great. Carla, what surprised you?
Well, I was very surprised at how fast. I mean, Kaiser has, you know, some structure, right, around, you know, doing telehealth and stuff like that. We had nothing, and we literally in 2 weeks had the equipment, had the, you know, had everything going, and that I never would have predicted. And so that was pretty amazing. And the other thing that I guess I'm surprised at, and this is from my learning, you know, talking to and reading the experiences of doctors across the country, is that we are super blessed here in California to, you know, kind of be captains still of our own ship. You know, the stories I hear about people being just basically knocked off of contracts and, you know, just, you know, having no say in their employment and stuff like that. You know, in my group, we are a big multi-specialty group, but we are, you know, we are shareholders. We are our own entity. We have our own board of directors. We're affiliated with a big health system, but the group itself is standalone. And I never get worried about, you know, where, you know, am I going to have a job or anything like that. So, you know, I feel very, that surprised me how quickly people were put in jeopardy across the country. And I feel like, you know, we're lucky here in California, very lucky.
Yeah. Morgan, what surprised you?
I think very similar to what Michelle said, really just it's surprising how clear priorities, what is a priority, can come into, you know, become apparent. It's really amazing how quickly we can let go of things that we thought that we just had to really hold on to tight. So I would say that, and a pleasant, maybe not exactly a surprise, but kind of surprise is just how much people want to step up if given the opportunity.
Great, thanks. Walt, any surprises?
Nah.
Besides the 5 power boosters that you now have to have for your Wi-Fi network?
Well, couple of things. One is I have been actually very surprised how receptive the residents in training have been to the new world. And I've been inspired and proud. They've stepped up, whether it be in the hospital. They've all gone up and learned about ventilator management. We have an alternative care site that's set up. They have taken on leadership roles. And in the office, they're figuring it out. I mean, they're really leading the changes. It makes me very, very optimistic, just reminds me about how amazing it is to be a family doc and to be in our tribe. The other thing I've been amazed about is we have virtually, all of our teaching now is virtual. Our morning reports virtual, our didactics are virtual, the residents are at home with modules. I think it's going to spur a whole new way of thinking about medical education, going from apprenticeship model, which we've all been raised in, just keep seeing patients and you're going to learn, to one where it's going to be more thoughtful about competency-based education. How many patients do you need to see with heart failure versus simulation versus this? I mean, there's a lot of innovation around, you know, integrating technology in meaningful ways. We're going to have to keep our eyes on all that, because I think the other surprise I had is one of our faculty coming to me and saying, you know, I went in, along what Michelle was saying, I went into family medicine because of relationships. I went into family medicine because I wanted to care for my patients. And I'm really worried with all this technology that I'm going to get separated from that. And so I think we just need to be mindful of it and make sure that technology is an enabler and not some kind of way that it derails us from our fundamental principle that we're a relationship-centered specialty.
Great, thanks. Well, I'm going to hand it back to you now. We're at a quarter after, and I know you want to talk, you want folks to share some gratitude, and you want some listeners to share some gratitude and what they're up to. So I'm going to put this slide up again, and then I'm going to let you run and see if you can hear what others are going to say about gratitude.
Great. So if you did download the Wellness, Resiliency, and Gratitude guideline, it talks about, you know, as we move through the evening, taking some notes. So hopefully some of you have been able to do that. And if you haven't, just, you know, just put down in your chat what moves you as it relates to resilience, as it relates to what we're going to talk about right now. I'm going to preface it by saying that one of my mentors, Cliff Knight, who is the gentleman who sponsors the annual AFP Physician Wellbeing Conference, which has really been a big success every year. Now it's his third year. And I asked Cliff, I said, so Cliff, out of all the things that you've learned and are teaching and watching and research and so forth, what is the most important thing you do for your own well-being? And he said, you know, and he didn't even hesitate. And he said, it was being told about the power of practicing intentional gratitude, Walt. And I didn't choose this tonight. Shelley and the team did. But, you know, 20 years ago, there was zero literature about gratitude in medicine, nothing. In the last 20 years now, there's about 300 studies that have showed powerful effects of gratitude over our biology, our psychology, and so forth. You can do this many ways, but the way it's recommended commonly is at the end of each day, list 3 things that happened that day for what you're grateful for. Some of you probably already do this in some way. I know just thinking about tonight has reminded me to keep doing it more. How do you express gratitude? Well, you know, we have faculty meetings every week, and the 14 of us started out with announcements and appreciations every week. We are trained to know we're going to come in with some sense of, okay, I'm going to say something that I appreciate, something I'm grateful for. And often it has to do with other faculty members or residents. So it's very community building, and there's a whole lot of dividends to it. And the other piece is learning, how do I actually receive it when someone says, Walt, you know, thank you so much for doing that. I mean, you know, we're built around like, well, it's okay, you know, versus stopping and letting that soak in. There's a physiology to all of that. So I can't tell if people are putting things in, Josh, in chat yet. So that's the exercise for the next few minutes.
Well, and while our listeners are typing, because, you know, they do have to type, they don't have the luxury that the 4 of you have of being able to just turn mute off and speak to us. But while they're typing, I'd love to hear from the 4 of you about, do you have practice? Do you have an intentional practice? Morgan, I'm going to start with you.
I actually do have a gratitude practice. So I think that it's, I think Walt said he forgets about his sometimes. I had to take it out and dust it off. But I have been keeping a running list and just trying to write a little bit each day about what I'm grateful for. But I really think also this practice of writing thank you letters that we took up as a staff feels like such a powerful and nourishing gratitude practice. And I think particularly in this time when we are on Zoom all the time and doing so much virtually and we can't see each other often, there's something really different about getting a card or a note or a piece of paper or something in the mail that someone, stops and takes the time with. So I found that that's a good gratitude practice.
All right, thanks. Carla, anything in particular?
I mean, I try to keep that forefront in mind. I mean, I don't write it down every day or anything like that. I mean, I like comparing like my situation compared to like my partner. My partner has 2 little kids. She's early in practice. She's got mortgages and all kinds of stuff that I don't have to deal with in all of this. And I feel very grateful about being in the kind of the position I'm in right now, and with all of this going on, and I think a lot about my younger colleagues having to negotiate all those extra things. And I mean, my own kind of practice is, to walk and to look at, detail as I walk, and to clear my mind and see beauty and see nature, and then to be thankful for that. And that was really good for me.
Right. Michelle, how about you? And we're starting to get some great comments in that I'm going to share in a sec.
So today I'm grateful for being home and how much I love my home. I just love everything about it. And we went for a walk, and I love our neighborhood. And so I try to practice gratitude every moment for sure.
Great, thanks. And I think you were one of the ones who taught me about doing that, so many years ago. We have a nice comment from our own Adam Francis, who is grateful that he got to see Son Owens' steps while they were in shelter and placing together. Dr. Van Wyn, who commented earlier, Michelle and Carla, that you two have it easy, because she has little people at home who are climbing all over her, like a set of twins, I do believe, and is very grateful not only for her family at home, but also her work family. And hearing the same thing from Dr. Rebecca Burton, who's grateful for the work family who helps support her in this time. Erica, and I wish Erica and Roshananaman could be on off mute, but she types, I am grateful for my au pair. I appreciate her beyond measure for helping with childcare and homeschooling, and they keep telling her that she is a super critical piece of our healthcare team. And secondly, in a 2-physician household, I'm very grateful to have that type of support, and grateful for our backyard, our green oasis with a trampoline and a pool, and so very privileged. I'm grateful for my work colleagues and the leadership at our FQHC who have been beyond supportive, inventive, and creative. Dr. Ng, Bill Ng, says he's grateful for CAFP, a strong organization grounded in principles that address physician wellness. Lauren Simon, colleagues helping each other, plus new ideas with family home activity fund suggestions, sharing hard to find groceries and smiles, visible even through the masks. Rebecca Burton is grateful for a brand new home. She was interested in moving during all of this, but loves her new neighborhood. And that's super, and congratulations, Rebecca. I saw those notes. Walt, how about you? As we're about to round up here. What's your practice of gratitude like?
Well, I meditate regularly, and Deepak Chopra actually was my instructor, and much of what has come out of tonight is actually designed after some things that Deepak had recommended decades ago. So I'll just tell you, my big thing is new life. Then that my 11-month-old granddaughter is moving from Nebraska to California as we speak with her whole family, which is really great. So in these last few moments, what we wanted to do is just call out again, COVID, it's here. What do we as an organization, what do we as individual physicians, as individuals, as families, as teams, what do we want to be during COVID? So, you know, we mentioned fear, we mentioned, and I had a ton of this actually, quite honestly, 4 to 6 weeks ago on many levels. I really wasn't sure as president of CFP, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? We have almost 11,000 members. What are we supposed to do? Let alone at work, let alone at home, and so forth. And it came up to me, well, that's where courage comes in. When you have fear, that's when you have courage. If there's no fear, then you don't really need any courage. But moving right up, most of what we've talked about today is to honor the fact that we're in a specific time and stress is real and the stakes are high. But we've really talked about that growth zone to the far right in many aspects. So we just want to hold that out to all of us is, you know, how do we want to continue to show up as family physicians? How do we want to show up as an academy during this time of COVID? And I just see Pedro Moreno I hope that's okay, Pedro, if I see your name just came up, because Pedro is actually of the family physician that showed me this. And it's just evidence of us all sharing with one another as we continue to learn and grow together. We have a few other slides we want to share before we're done. One is the AFP has a number of resources to support well-being, and we recommend you check it out. Use some of the surveys in there, and it's linked to many other resources that you can align with whatever your situational needs might be. And I think we could go to the next one too. That is related to the AFP and the response to the coronavirus. And again, we're doing it on our side also on the California Academy. I must say I've been very impressed watching how the staff has managed to put together some amazing things on our own website and also links and so forth. So these are really two good go-to, and obviously the California Academy, we want to be that for our members. And I just want to take a moment to say I'm grateful, I really am, for the amazing staff, for Shelley, for Josh, for Morgan, I assume Lisa Folberg's on our line, our CEO, and others. Spark is a place for us to, you know, communicate with each other, to get information, to interact. And Shelley, maybe you want to just say something about the Welcome to the Campus, as that's a very exciting
Yeah, for
innovation.
those of you who haven't checked it out, your Committee on Continuing Professional Development has launched CAFP Campus. So it is your resource center for CME. You'll find everything from live information about live activities, learning labs, which are our initiatives like our STI initiative and our reproductive health initiative. You'll find the new ACEs monograph there shortly. And then Homeroom is a brand new product, and Homeroom is an online platform. There are currently 3 activities up on Homeroom, free, available for anyone, and we're in the process of launching 5 more. And those of you who looked at your campus newsletter that came in your email boxes either last Tuesday or Wednesday, will see that we've got 5 new activities: Family Medicine Forum, Education from Your Kitchen Counter. And so it's 5 faculty members from the forum who would have been teaching you next week, but who are doing it online for us. So hope you'll check those out, and do look at the dates for the forum in November.
Great.
With that, any final comments? Walt, Michelle, Carla, Morgan, you got a couple minutes.
I think I'd probably just like to remind all of us that this is a really important time. I loved how Morgan said, put the oxygen on first, for us to take care of ourselves. We did not talk about some of the stories that I put together as I was thinking about tonight as it relates to physicians across the United States who have actually died from COVID or had real significant emotional issues related to it. And as Carla said, you know, we've been relatively spared. The ACGME uses different stages of the pandemic. We're in stage 2. That means it's real. Things are going on. We're having to change things, but we have not seen stage 3 like they are in New York and a few other real super hot spots. Hopefully we won't, but it's really important that we take care of ourselves because your community, your patients need you. We need you. And the Academy wants to be here to make sure that as the needs for our members grows with this, that we're solid and a real great resource for you. So I think we just want to say, I want to say thank you for Shelley for sponsoring this and getting us to think about this, and for our panelists. And we all just want to wish everybody the absolute best, and I guess be well.
Be well. And we'll see you next week with what we hope will be CAFP's first concert, our community conversation concert. So if you have colleagues who are musically inclined, please send their names to us, and Josh is going to put together our first concert. Appreciate all of you. I learned about self-compassion. I learned that it's okay to be angry. Thank goodness. About taking an inventory of what keeps us well, about letting things go, and most importantly, about being who we need to be during this time to support our friends and our family and our colleagues and our family physician members. So take care. Thank you all. Thanks, Walt and Carla, Michelle, and Morgan. I so appreciate you spending a Sunday evening with us and sharing your deep thoughts around the topic. Thanks to all of our listeners and viewers who've been online and still sharing their stories. We so appreciate the time that you spend with us. And we'll see you all next week. Good night.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Morgan. You were great.
Oh, good. You can stop recording us.
Thanks, Walt.